You are worthy of happiness.
For me, and probably for a lot of people, it's recognizing it's the hard thing, because if there's something physically wrong with you, it's usually easy to recognize that. Um, and I know that in the past, now I know that there have been times when I've been depressed, but I wasn't able to recognize it because maybe it wasn't that extreme, and it took until I was very depressed. And that also, I think, took for my partner to point it out for me. It was during COVID, and I was stuck at home because of the way I worked, because of my job. I was at home for 9 months, um, and it was very difficult. And that was a really big bout of depression that I was able to recognize, thanks to being guided, or it being pointed out to me. Um, and then, I've been able to look back and go, oh, that moment, that must have been depression. But, I think like a lot of people, sometimes when you're just feeling low or you're feeling sad, you don't necessarily think I'm depressed, probably because it's not talked about much, and it's, still seen as still seen as an issue that you don't talk about. That's getting better, obviously, now, but in my lifetime anyway, about probably the majority of my lifetime, depression is something that, you wouldn't talk about. Your mental health, you wouldn't talk about. Yeah, like I said, that was that big situation through COVID. And actually before then, a couple of years before, I was been having treatment for cancer. And about 2 years after that, I got depression. I mean, I had PTSD from the whole situation, but obviously depression was involved in that as well. And I suppose I recognise that. But since then, if I get a little bit depressed, it hasn't been for a while. I can recognise it, and then I'm able to deal with it better. During the whole COVID-19 situation, when I was at home for so long, I suppose I had time to really look at it, but I was able to cope and cope with and manage my depression by meditating and exercising. Um, I didn't really have I didn't have any money at the time because of the financial situation with COVID, so I was really stuck with sort of entertaining myself.
So you talked about your depression that you went through during COVID, the pandemic, because you weren't working. So can you talk a bit more about that and what it was about that particular situation that sent you into a depression?
I think it was, I suppose, not being able to do anything about my situation. I'm generally proactive in situations, and I can change them, or make things good for myself. But in that situation, I just felt really stuck because of the oppression that was happening. I just felt like, I felt like I was so kind of ground down by the whole lockdown situation, and having so little money. I mean, it's not just about money, but the freedom as well.
So having the power to self-govern.
There you go. Yeah, I lost my autonomy. That's it. Yeah, I felt like I had no autonomy. If I want to talk about my emotions or something, I will. Absolutely, no problem.
How easy do you find it to talk about your emotions?
If I want to talk about my emotions or something, I will. Absolutely, no problem. I think generally I find it easy to talk about my emotions. Um, I suppose it's a little different with my partner, because it's a different conversation than when you're talking to a friend about it, I think. Um, but yeah, I can talk about my emotions easily. I've learned to be in touch with them quite a long time ago. So
When was the last time you spoke to a male friend about your emotions?